I'm telling you, if you watch this race, you had to be sitting, you had to be standing. It was a whole roller coaster of emotion. And with a wet race, that means most of the time it equals chaos because you have teams. You have to make sure you're spot on with the strategy. You have the driver has to be switching. You have to get to an optimal temperature with the tires. That means you are fighting so many battles around. So
Through goes Hamilton! You can hear the cheers from Monza!
the mics are on and off we go. Hi guys, my name is Winnie and welcome to the Wilsman Podcast, the home of Formula One content and everything motorsport. So as you can see today, I'm solo. I'm solo riding. Ray's a bit unwell, but she will be back. So we were out in Zandvoort this past weekend. That is Max Verstappen's home race. It's such a traditional, demanding track, and it promised action and it delivered action and chaos. I mean, one thing about a wet track in Formula One is that most of the time it equals chaos, and good chaos equals a very good race. So we do see the skill of the drivers being tested and tried out, and that is what we had this whole weekend. So Friday practice was good. We had different teams forming part of the top teams. We had in FP1, we had the Aston Martin of Alonso in P2, the Red Bull of Max Verstappen as per usual, and then we had Lewis featuring in the top times in FP1. So that means we had Mercedes had a decent a race car underneath them. We had in FP2 Red Bull not having an answer to the papaya of Lando Norris, and Lando Norris topped up the sessions in FP2 with Max, and then we saw wet track. That means the drivers are riding out there trying to look for grip wherever they can on the track. We saw the other thing about Zandvoort and the track at the Dutch Grand Prix is that there's not so much big of a runoff area. That means if you have a moment, you will go to the barriers. You will have a moment to the barriers, and we did see a few of that. With some of the drivers on cold tires, and they could not find grip. We had Joe in one of the barriers as well. Beached his car. Not, I don't think he had a moment at the barriers. He beached his car. Yeah. So FP3, I think it was just setting pace for how qualifying later on would look like. So that means we went into quali with quite a damp track. That means it's not exactly raining, but it's not exactly dry enough for slick. So we had Q1 running on inters, Q2 on inters, and then Q3 we had a feature of the slicks. So in Q1, good times being set, but then again you have to use a dry line, and then there's some wet parts of the track. That means you lose momentum on your lap as well. But we ended up losing Lewis. He didn't make it into Q3, but we had the Williams, both drivers at Williams making it into Q3 for the first time since Monza 2017. So that was good effort. I just love the trajectory that the Williams team has been on. They're just going up, 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 up. And we actually saw that translated into race. They had a good, race car as well. We had Albano finishing way up there. So it was good to see them, make it out into Q3. Lewis didn't. He qualified P13. We had Leclerc with an issue as well. He didn't qualify as far high up as he would have liked. And then now we went into quali. That was it. That was a rundown. That was also, I mean, the whole weekend was forecasted to rain. Russell finished up way high, which was very nice to see actually. Also, that means that, going to Sunday, Mercedes had quite, a good car going into this Grand Prix. So, and then we just moved swiftly to Sunday's Grand Prix. I love Zandvoort. I also saw that Mercedes were running a tribute to Niki Lauda. This is the Grand Prix he won. Like, that was his last win in Formula One. Yeah, Niki Lauda was very instrumental, by the way, in getting Lewis Hamilton to sign with Mercedes, and may his soul continue resting in peace. But he was very, 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 very instrumental into getting Lewis into Mercedes. Instrumental. In fact, I feel like he's the most important, piece that I think in convincing Lewis into getting into Mercedes. And also, this is a good time to actually like. By the way, they have not announced Lewis. Lewis does not have a contract for 2024. I mean, of course, they're all, they've all expressed, they're all optimistic that they're going to, come up with something, both Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. So we're waiting to see, but I actually thought they would do it, during this weekend, but let's wait and see. So let's get directly into the race. I'm telling you, if you watch this race, you had to be sitting, you had to be standing. It was a whole roller coaster of emotion. And with a wet race, that means most of the time it equals chaos because you have teams, you have to make sure you're spot on with a strategy. The driver has to be switching, you have to get to an optimal temperature with the tires. That means you are fighting so many battles around. So and I feel like the wet conditions really do bring out the best. There brings out the resilience in the drivers, and that is what this particular Grand Prix really offered. So, and I went to also say that I will get into. I think I did say in one of on our Instagram stories, and my review for the Red Bull results. Max is quite a lucky driver. Yeah, he is a decent driver, a good racer, but like he is quite very lucky, and I will get into why I think he's quite a very lucky driver. So we had, you know, the grid starting up coming Sunday, very nice, electric environment in the track. That I hear the Dutch really do know how to throw a party. So yeah, I feel like the whole atmosphere could be transferred through the screens for those who could not make it to go to Zandvoort. So we could actually feed off the energy coming from the screens, and we could actually feel it. So we had the race. It was I think all the drivers on slicks. On slicks, that means the whole grid was actually on soft. Only Lewis Hamilton was on mediums. I think afterwards, like during the post race interviews, he said I think he wanted to, just have an offset, be offset like an offset strategy. But then he was actually shocked to be on track and to be the only one on mediums. And seeing this, I mean, the soft tire did make sense because the temperatures around the track were quite low. That means the degradation on the tires was not, very high. That means the soft tire would actually make a proper racing tire. And actually, during the practice sessions, we did see a lot of the drivers do a lot of long stints and race simulation, sessions on the soft tire. So actually, like the soft tire actually did make a very proper race tire owing to the low conditions on the track. Yeah. So we actually saw the whole grid on softs, and then we had Lewis Hamilton on mediums. But that stint was not even going to last long because again it was raining. By the time we go around the formation lap, one lap it was already raining. So we had a lot of drivers, teams making in the calls, come in, come and pit, take into the inters. And I think that's where the rain started beating Mercedes yesterday. They were lapping either at 2 laps after. I even had that Lewis had to call in. He had to call himself in. And I feel like that's one of the operational gaps that are ailing the Mercedes Petronas. AMG, I don't even know. Like the Mercedes F1 team. So we had that struggling. They messed up. I feel like they messed up Russell's race from that time on because with that late call with the other teams, the top teams, the Red Bulls, pitting in for the Inters, and them staying out a lap or 2 laps later, that really did cost them. So we had their drivers pitting and coming out way back in the grid. There's a time Lewis was actually P20, Um, so there's where, and then it's not like very fast pit stops. Again, we are alien with that. So that means we are stopping late, we are stopping longer. So we even had like a 3.9 second pit stop. Well, other teams are decently doing up 2.7, going on the higher side at 3.0, us like a decent weekend for us, a decent pit stop is becoming a 3.1. Oh my God, we are really the ghetto. Like it's like we're operating from like bottom of the barrel. So that is one of the things that, so the rain in the first few laps was, I think was setting pace for the whole Grand Prix, which was actually, I mean, nice to see. So we had a lot of rearranging of the orders. And by the way, Perez actually did jump into the pits before Max, and I feel like that worked into his advantage. And actually, that's how Perez led the Grand Prix. I feel like for him, it was looking promising. Honestly, I actually thought he would go on and won, but I had forgotten what team he drives on. But yeah, so we had apparently the team decided to undercut him with Max, so they pitted Max again. So after the inter stint, after the rain stopped, there's the track is drying up, so now it was good to now do switch back to the soft tires. That some teams actually also stayed out there. I think it was Bottas and some other. I think is it Albon. The people who didn't beat in that first run, they still stayed out on the softs. I think, yeah, I didn't understand, like, okay, Mercedes is logic, like, yes, you are, it's they have they have a strategy team, they have the radar, they can see, they have technology, right? Like, you can tell the rain is going to come, but then still I don't even think the medium didn't even, I think it featured later on in the race, but also it didn't make sense for it to be like a starting tire. I understand he was trying to offset, he was down in P13, and you can always start something else, you can always try to play a different game from those ahead of you. But yeah, I don't think that is a gamble that really worked for them. So we had that running and that unfortunate and that cheeky undercut from Red Bull I think yesterday we saw like testament and people asking like, we saw that gap. There's a lap that Max took 4 seconds out of Checo's, time. That was, and we keep on asking, are they really driving the same car? I mean, we will never know, but we will have to question it because yesterday we saw that apparently Max didn't ask to be pitted first. So it's the team that decided. So they were really, they decided to tank his win. Anyway, I think Perez also did he was also his own course of undoing later on in the race. Yeah. So we had the race running very good. As I said before, the soft tires were very decent race tire. And then now we had those nice stints on softs for most drivers. I think we had Lewis now fighting from, I think after the Inter things. I think they started making, at least from then on, they were able to pit him on time for slicks. At least they got it right, and at least he was able to move up on. And I keep on saying there's one driver you can never count out is Lewis fucking Hamilton. So he put out a resilient drive yesterday. He drove, you can see his passion shining. You can see the fighting spirit in him, you know, fighting through the grid, and up he went. So I also saw something else. I think a post-race interview by Karun Chandok. He was interviewing Toto Wolf, and Toto keeps on saying these things that are making me question. Oh my God, what are we really doing? Like, what are we doing at Mercedes? Like, so he said he'd rather have a fast car and mediocre results. Like, what? Make that make sense, right? Like, make it make sense, sir. Like, every day he keeps on saying shit that I'm like, ah, yeah. What are we running? That we are running a circus. The same. Also, I think think we are used to the circus. That is Ferrari strategy team. Honestly, and their whole team. I know we can't blame a specific department. It's like a whole team effort thing. So I think Leclerc had, like, they had a moment with Oscar Piastri, and I feel, yeah, his floor was damaged, and he actually ended up retiring, like, I think around lap 41 or something. So he was not able to go the whole race distance. We had Sainz at least put up quite a good show, and he was able to finish, I think P5 he was, yeah. Um so we had, I think, now let me go to the reason why I think Max is also a very lucky driver. So I think later on, after the slick, we had the driver starting on slicks, and then they went to inters, and then now to slicks again, and then during the last session it was raining, and then I think someone had a moment, it was raining quite hard. So Ocon, when people were pitting for inters, Ocon was on the wets, I think, and also Max pitted, and Max pitted for wets as well. And the thing is, immediately, and then I think Perez came in, and then that's when we had the session being red flagged. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think the wet tire was the tire to be on. I mean, we don't know. We couldn't have known because the stint ran. I mean, the red flag really stopped us seeing if maybe the inter or like the wet tire was the right tire to be on. So we could never know. But the reason why I think Max is lucky is that with that red flag, he came in and changed, and we had the last stint for all the drivers being on inters. So that was it. I mean, the red flag, the time was stopped, and we had the drivers, come in, and we all waited. I think after 35 minutes, the race was resumed. I mean, we actually did see Alonso almost overtake Max, but that was really not going to happen. But it was a good effort. So I mean, honestly, I feel like that weekend promised a bit of action and it did deliver a bit of action. So we had Perez get a 10 penalty. So that means Gasly was promoted. And this was Gasly's first podium with Alpine. And it was so nice to see them celebrate. And kudos to him. And also we saw Max now equaling the record held by Ascari and Sebastian Vettel had the record for 9 consecutive wins. Sebastian Vettel achieved that behind a Red Bull as well, like while driving a Red Bull, and Max did the same as well. This was his 46th win. That is, that's stellar effort. This is his 90th podium as well. And I can imagine he's still very young. I mean, he's going to do more and more and more and more and more. And I think, this whole Sebastian, the record, the 9 wins, nine consecutive wins, this is just testament like when Red Bull are dominating, Red Bull are dominating. When they are dominating, they are dominating. So that was also very, 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 very nice to, nice to point out. We also have Alborn in the points. Yeah, that was very nice. Also, big, big, big props to Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson. Oh yeah, we forgot. Yeah, Ricaldo and Piastri like had a moment, and Ricaldo broke one of his metacarpals, and couldn't. He's not able to drive. And quick recovery for him. So we had Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson is both Red Bulls and Alpha Tauri's reserve driver. He drives in the Super Formula Series, and we had him come in, and he did quite a decent job. Honestly, he finished, in front of Sunoda, who finished in P16. And I feel like Sunoda, during the soft tire stint, like after they pitted, I think after the inters, like the first stint, the starting tire, and then inters, and then the soft stint. I think they delayed with him coming in to pit. So we had Lando and Hamilton pit, and then also come and overtake Sinoda on track. I mean, honestly, I think AlphaTauri should have done something about it. I mean, honestly, there are teams that are not really up to making mistakes this time, and it's the teams like Red Bull who are getting their strategy calls right. There's no margin for error, and they don't even need it because honestly, let's just agree they've won both championships comfortably, but they're still showing up. They're just showing up. There's always that. I think they're operating from like that mindset. They're in that absolute success, absolute nailing it weekend in, weekend out. They're nailing stuff. So, and especially when it matters. So yeah, they should have pitted Tsunoda way earlier, but he did do a very, very long stint on those tires. And that's why I'm telling you, like the cool temperatures allowed people to use that soft tire as a proper racing tire. So we had Lewis also fight up to like a decent position. I think he finished behind Sainz in P6 and Oscar Piastri. And then I think Ocon did also get some points. And then Russell, I think they had a moment with, is it Lando? I'm not, but I think he ended up, I think after a while, I think he was, I mean, of course, he finished last P17 because there were other retirements. Sargent retired way earlier, and Leclerc. We had a few retirements yesterday. So, and then the other interesting news, I feel like silly season came after the season has resumed. So apparently now there's a doubt or Joe being on that, Alfa Romeo seat. So apparently we might be seeing a new driver next year, but we don't know. Haas confirmed their drivers, so we'll have K-Mark and Hulk running next year with Haas again. and also a very nice run. They had a Haas ran a very good race with Hulkenberg yesterday. That was nice to see as well. Nice strategy calls as well from most of the teams across the grid, and that also brought us. I feel we were a bit entertained at least. We didn't get a new race winner, but we did get a unique podium of Max Verstappen, Alonso, and Pierre Gasly. Yeah, and I think now we are headed into Monza, the Temple of Speed. The Temple of Speed, it's Monza. I love Italy as well. So Pirelli will also be trying out the alternative tire allocation system where we have a reduced number of sets allocated to the drivers, and then also like mandatory running on dry conditions. Q1 will have the hard tire, Q2 mediums, and Q3 softs. So we'll see a running of that. Monza always promises action, and it's Ferrari's home race. So maybe hoping they will get all their shit together and maybe come together and give their drivers a proper both their drivers are proper a proper race. So we are looking forward to that, and we will be seeing you out in Monza next weekend. You have a lovely start to the weekend, and remember to follow us on Instagram at the Wheelspin Podcast, on Twitter the Wheelspin Podcast, on TikTok at the Wheelspin Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that is it for me, and I hope you had a good weekend, and you had a good time with me here. Bye.